I was once his enemy. Now I am his savior. In a fight to the death, I discovered not only his weakness but also emotions between us. Chapter 30. Jenna. There's a girl named Janet who makes really good sandwiches. Helma says to trying to break the tension in here, then taking another bite out of it. I looked back to Alkander and see him taking a step closer to him while his head twitches while he keeps blinking. Each blink his eyes would change. Blue, bright hazel, bright blue. He took another step closer while his breathing is harsh. Alkander, I say while I look over to Helma and see him looking down at the freaking sandwich, not paying attention that an alpha might just end his life right here with no mercy. He takes another step. While he's now in front of me, I stick out of my hand and grip on his shirt. I yank him back and he looks down at me with blue eyes. Stop. He's not even doing anything, and not even showing a sign that he wants me. Stop, I say in harsh whisper only for him to hear. He stares at me while he blinks slow, then opening his eyes to Hazel. I see his jaw clench, but he sighs and looks back to Helma. I looked back to Helma and see him about to walk out the room. Helma. He jumps and looks over his shoulder and meets my eyes. Yes, he says while he slowly starts to turn around. WHE. I get cut off by Alkander, who takes another step towards him while standing tall and saying, I want to give you a choice. This gets Helma's attention and he narrows his eyes at him while turning towards him. He stands tall and crosses his arms across his chest. And what might this be? Choose between getting locked up or getting killed, he says, throwing it back with venom with his words. I hear Alkander suck in a breath, and I see his fist start to close at his sides, but he fights against it. You took out one of my best warriors. You took him out with such ease, while others would have a difficult time doing so. That's what happens when you become a rogue for so many years, trying to live for your mate, he growls. I didn't ask about how you learned how to fight. I'm asking you this. I would like to invite you into my pack and become one of my top warriors, he said while I saw his finger twitch. Helma clenched his jaw and stared at him with fury in his eyes. And then what? Have me just train every day, where I can go seeking through the woods trying to find my mate? It's either a yes and no question, but if you choose to say no, I won't have no choice but let you get far, but I would set out my men to kill a rogue, he growled out. My eyes grew big and I was about to speak, but he came in my mind. I won't do that. I just want to see what he would do. I glare at his back, but I stare at Helma. His eyes are a deep blue. He stares at Alkander and I can tell his mind is turning wheels. His fist clenches, the opens, then clenched again. If I say yes, I need clothes and my own home. I don't want to live in this house while women stare at me. Because I can tell you one thing. I won't stare at any if only they are my mate. Who said I was giving you a house? He growled out while he took a step closer. I did. Look, Alpha, I didn't train for so many years just to get locked up and get pulled into a pack without my own house and clothes. So it's either get a bribe or none. I'll say yes, but I need my own house and clothes. And no, I would be off my way, but that wouldn't stop me from killing your best men, he said, staring hard at Alkander. Alkander stood quiet. I stared at his back, but then Helma's eyes. They were still deep blue. I think those are how his normal eyes are, because in the cell his was bright blue. So I don't know. And I also noticed he was still without clothes. I still stared at his face, but his chest was so defined. His mate should love him. I stared back at Alkander and he still hasn't said anything. I took a step forward, and enough till I was to his side, and I looked up to the side of his face. He was staring at Helma, but I can see his eyes fogged over. He might be talking to his wolf mind linking someone. If I say yes to the house, you'll train my other warriors your techniques. I'll tell you when to end the sessions, but you would not disrespect me like now. I will kill you. I have so many ways to kill you in my mind. And it's hard when I can smell my mate with your scent. Oh, Elle, I didn't know you can be protective when you chained her on her neck with silver, he said, stepping closer. I heard Alkander suck in a breath while I grew big eyes and snapped my head to Helma. What did you say? Oh, how you treated your mate. How you got mad because she didn't submit to you, so you chained her up. How the hell do you do that to your own me? Does he want to die? Audrey said while she came closer. Clearly he does. I looked back to Alkindar and saw his turn into the shade of blue. I quickly placed my hand on his arm, but he didn't stare at me. Stop him before he does something we both don't want. How the hell do I do that? He's not even looking at me. Helmer was still talking and taking steps closer to Alkindar while he was breathing hard. I don't know. Think of something. Alkindar. He took a step closer while I was trying to pull him back. What else do you have to say? He growled out while trying to pull his arm away. How the hell do you do that to your mate? Aren't you supposed to cherish her, not treat her like a peasant? He took another step closer to him while Helmer did the same. Helmer, stop. I growled while pulling Alkindar back, but he didn't even move. He can't do that, Jenna. How are you standing him right now? He growled, not looking at me but staring at Alkindar. Even Helmer, I said while pulling back his arm. I don't know what to do, Audrey. Help me. Help me pull him. I was already helping you. My heart started to pound against my chest and I heard them talking while they both growled at each other. Alkindar took a huge step to him and I felt his arm go up and I didn't know what I was doing, but this is what my brother's mate did when he was out of control. I went in front of Alkindar and gripped his face, pulling him down till his lips were on mine. Chapter 31, Jenna. It felt like time stopped. It felt like I was on cloud 9. I'm probably Sparks flowed through my body, and I almost moaned from the feeling. I closed my eyes and just stood there with his lips on mine. He was frozen, shocked probably. I didn't know why I did it, but it just seemed right when it came to thought. I was about to pull away. That's when his arms wrapped around my waist and held me there. His lips started to move. I'm kissing him. I really am kissing him. After all that, I decided to kiss him. I start to pull away, but he brings me closer to his chest and starts to move his lips faster. I can't control my lips, and how they are reacting to this. One of his hands goes behind my neck and he continues to kiss me. I growl, but it comes out as a moan for our ears to hear. My eyes snap open as they are already looking at me. They're a mix of hazel and black. My hands are still around his face and I tried so hard to move them down to his chest to push him away. But Efkin Audrey decides to come up, trying to get control. Stop, Audrey. I need to pull back. I only did this before he did something stupid. Well, clearly we both like what's happening. Right when she said that, he moaned into the kiss. That sent a shiver down my spine. He pulled me even tighter and my hands were still on his cheeks. But they slowly became limp, so they slowly fell down his neck, to his chest. I felt his heart pounding fast and hard against his chest. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We have to stop. I didn't mean to make this as a make-out session. Well, clearly he does. Stop. I growled again, but it coming out as another moan. I wanted to growl out of frustration, but I know that would just make him think I'm enjoying it. Because you are. Shut up, Audrey. I had to fight over my body because Audrey was taking control. She made our arms move around his neck, bringing us together even more. He groaned in response. Audrey, quit it. We need to stop. I can't even breathe. Oh, you're fine. I'll take over. I have bigger lungs. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We have the same body. We are not in wolf form. Oh well, I guess we can pull back. I'm going to kill you, Audrey. No, you're not. Because if you did, you'll kill yourself too. I blocked her out and she finally listened to me because I was almost gasping for air. I unwrapped my hands around his neck and pushed him back with so much force that he stumbled back. I took a huge breath in and exhale out. My cheeks are flushed while I looked at him, seeing him standing tall with flushed cheeks with a full-on smile. His eyes are turning back to his normal hazel and he takes in a breath. I'm still trying to get my egg. But one thing just popped in my mind. I looked behind me, but didn't see Helmer. I looked around, yet he wasn't there. I looked back to Alkindar and see him taking a step towards me. I take one back. But when he see this, is that another step to us together? He smiles even bigger and his eyes are lit with happiness. My heart pumped faster at the sight. I did that so you won't do anything stupid and make me hate you even more than I do now. I'm just going to think that you wanted to kiss this handsome thing. He winks while I roll my eyes. Think whatever you want, but just know that I did that before you might kill your best fighter here now. I stood up and took one more breath in and exhaled out while my heart started to pump in its normal rhythm. Just admit it, Jenna. You wanted to feel these lips on yours. He smirks now. I'm done with you. Go do alpha stuff. I start to walk away and walk towards the kitchen. I hear him start to walk behind me while I walk to Janet, who's making sandwiches for the Ongazer and the pups running around. Can I have one? I asked while I walked next to her and see a little boy running away from her with a sandwich in hand. She looks over shoulder and smiles. Of course, Jenna. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilgan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Want one? She raises an eyebrow while I feel his arm wrap around my waist. But I take out my claws and dig them in his arm. He didn't seem fazed by it, and pulled me back to his chest where he rested his head on top of mine. Oh, like that. I elbowed his stomach as he groaned and I unhooked his arm just in time when Janet turned around with 2 sandwiches in hand, smiling. She hands me one and gives the other to Alcandor. Thank you. I say while I take a bite out of mine while I hear him breathe out shaky and inhales big. Thank you. She comes closer to me and whispers in my ear. What are you guys now? Because you are not trying to fight him no more. What happened? And who's that new guy? He stole that sandwich from my hand. I'll tell you later. I whisper back. She nods and continues to make the sandwiches for the pups. I start to walk away and I hear him walking next to my side. Aren't you going to leave me alone now? I said while I took another bite out of the sandwich. Yeah. But then how are we going to fix this problem of us? Now what's your favorite color? We walk out the door and walk around his packed grounds. Blue. You grin. Favorite thing to do. I look over to him and see him smiling down at me. I love to draw you. He smiles but his eyes dull. My favorite thing is going to visit my mom and my dad. He looks at me in the eyes, which makes my heart speed up. That's sweet. Where are they? I asked while I waved at some pups who were looking at me and smiled crazy when I waved at them. Underground. He mumbled. I stop and look at him and see him looking down, kicking at some rocks. It wasn't you who killed them. He looked up and gave me a dark look while his face turned to a scowl. It was your old alpha. I'll explain more in the next chapter. But let's see if you can all handle Elsie and his dark childhood. Chapter 32. Jenna, he walked past me, while I stood shocked. What am I supposed to say? Oh, sorry for my alpha. Want to talk about something else? Alcandor. Wait. I didn't mean to bring them up and him. I said while I jogged towards him while he walked by the pack people who bowed their heads in respect. I'm going to do pack things. Go see other people. He growled out. His shoulders were tensed and I couldn't help but feel guilt crawl up my throat. Alcandor. Stop, please. He started to slow down, which I took that as a chance to catch up with him. Look. My alpha was someone who thought of himself as an powerful alpha. I didn't know he was the cause of your parents' death. He spun around and walked towards me, while I tried to stop my feet from tripping over themselves from the sudden halt. Yeah, I bet you didn't know about it. How old are you, Jenna? 19. Why? His face was still in a scowl, but his eyes were slowly starting to turn to blue. I'm 22 right now. My parents were killed when I was 12. I was forced to be an alpha at that age. I was taught how to become the person who I am now by myself. My father used silver to whoever didn't submit or disobeyed him. I didn't have an uncle or aunt. I was by myself when they died. My mother was about to give birth to my baby brother, but he decides to come and take that only chance I had to have a sibling with me. My sister left with her mate and didn't find out till a year later on. I was with Z. Alex at the time when they attacked. And that's when my whole life turned around. And that's when I knew I had to kill him. When I went your land, I went there to kill him and kill him in front of his son. I was going to kill his Luna too. But that's when I found you. When I slashed his side. That was the only time I gave someone mercy. I regret it. He growled out while his eyes turned to blue. He looked at me, but he turned around and shifted to his wolf form and took off to the woods. I stood there in shock. It felt like my heart was ripped out and torn to pieces. I remember that. I remember that. Because my father told me what he was going to do with Ian. I found Helmer walking around the grounds, but thanked the moon goddess for giving him clothes. He smiled at me when he saw me and walked towards me. I left when you pulled him for a kiss. I didn't want to see any of that. But the question is, you're okay with him now, why? He said while we walked side by side, waving at some pups here and there. Or some wolves walking by. I don't know, Helmer. I guess it was the bond thing. But I'm not thinking about that. I said while I kicked at some rocks. What now? He tried raping you. What now? My old alpha killed his parents when he was just 12. And he was forced to be an alpha at that age. You know how hard it is to grow up so fast at that age and take care of a pack. And not let them get invaded and killed because of how young he was. Helmer, that's a huge step of responsibility for a pup to take care of. No wonder they called him ruthless and the most feared. I said while I stopped walking and stared at his blue eyes. He stayed silent for a while and I sighed heavily. You don't know how much I feel guilty right now. I can't believe Jenna. Stop. You're acting if like you killed his parents. It was your alpha that did it. No big deal. He started to walk away and I gasped while I looked at his back. Helmer, you can't just say it's no big deal. What would you do if you found your mate and found out your parents had been killed by her alpha? How would you feel? I yelled to him while he stopped and turned towards me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My mate would not be living with someone that mad. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I didn't think my own alpha had done that to his parents. She was pregnant, Hilmar. She was ready to give birth to his baby brother. You know how hard that is for him to lose his parents and his baby brother. I wouldn't know the feeling. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He was so young. He didn't even have no one with him to help him through it. He was alone, Helmer. His sister was already at Adulton with her mate. She wasn't there with him. She barely found out a year later, Helmer. He stared at me while I took a breath in. When he went to my land, he was going to kill my alpha. But he found me instead. Then he done the right thing to do and not kill him. Instead, he rather tell you, than making you scared of him. We walked around some more and I met up with Janet telling her about Helmer and about Comin. She was happy that me and Alkander are starting to change things around. I told her what he told me earlier on. She told me he was a type of person who kept things locked up inside for a long time. She said he rarely talked through that stage of his life. She said he was a ruthless alpha before. He still is, she said, but not as bad as before. And for a child, that is crazy for him to have a mind like that. The sun was starting to set. Yet Alkander hasn't came to his house. I'm walking around his halls, looking through each room. His estate is massive. It's not a regular house size. Not even the same size as the pack house. I decided to cook something, because I haven't ate since the afternoon from Janet's sandwich. I walked downstairs. Towards the kitchen, I took out some things to make some meal with meat. But when I was about to open the fridge door, the door slammed open with a bang, and while I heard heavy breathing coming from there was another bang, indicating he slammed it close. He came walking in with nothing on while sweat dripped down his neck to his chest. He gave me a glaze but didn't say anything and walked upstairs leaving me behind. Chapter 33. Jenna. I slowly start to creep to the stairs and when I was going to take a step up the stairs, I jumped so much I thought I touched the ceiling. So where am I going to sleep? I turned around with my hand over my heart. Don't freaking do that, Helmer. What? I don't know where to sleep, he said while he walked in more, closing the door behind him. Where were you the whole day then? I asked while my eyebrows furrowed together. Walking around, telling wolves what to do, he said in a dull tone. Do you know you're just a warrior, not a beta, right? Yeah. And the highest-ranked warrior. I have a right to tell others what to do. I'm going to do it sooner or later, right? He said while he walked towards the kitchen and went straight to the fridge. Helmer, that still doesn't make you tell them what to do, I said, walking towards him. Clearly it does, because they listen either way. He looked towards me and bowed with one hand on his stomach, while the other was in the air behind his back. I'm so sorry, Luna. I'm sorry for disrespecting your pack. I narrow my eyes at him and cross my arms across my chest. Don't, Helmer. Don't call me that. He stood up straight and tilted his head. Why not? I just don't want to be called a Luna. He shook his head and looked back at the fridge. You're done. What? No, you're done. No, Jenna. You're done. No, you're done. He closes the door. Clearly you are. How am I dumb? You're dumb for liking Elka and her back. I felt my jaw clench. That doesn't mean I'm dumb. Yes, it does. Because he goes back to someone who chained you for weeks. Weeks, Jenna. How are you so stupid for going back to him? I felt a growl crawling up. His chain he changed. He sighed out while his hands flew up to the air. He chuckled and shook his head. His blue eyes stared at mine. How can someone change? How can someone that is supposed to love you and hold you tight change from not being ruthless? I stared at him and was about to say something, but he kept going. How can he change from not using silver again on you? What would happen if you two have pups and they misbehave? What? He'll use silver on them too. Jenna, I don't know what brick wall you're staring at, but look to the other side and see the truth. He won't do that. I growled out. How do you know? If he did it to his mate, how can he not do it to his own pups? He grew up with silver Helmer. So that doesn't mean for him to use it on his mate. I couldn't help but let the growl come out. What? Now you're mad? Jenna, get your head out from under your tail, he said while he took a step closer to me. What happened to you running away forever, huh? I stared at him while my fists clenched at my sides. What happened to us in the cells and you telling me how much you hate him? How you told me what kind of madman he is? How he was a monster? Helmer, stop. I growled. Oh. Now what? He told you to get mad at the truth like he did when I told him. Jenna, open your eyes. He's a monster and you know it. No, he's not. He took another step closer to me. I remembered you telling me that you hated him with all your might, that you're glad that you lost him, that you're glad that he hasn't found you yet. But once we came back to his pack now, you're all lovely devoted to each other. That's because he wants to restart on being mates. He chuckled and shook his head. Jenny, you can't restart with a monster. I stood there holding back the growl and pushing back Audrey. Good night, Helmer. I turned around and walked back to the stairs. The truth hurts, doesn't it, Jenna? Good night, Helmer. I walked up the stairs. I heard him growl. Jenna, quit staring at the brick wall and stare at the truth. I growled. Good night, Helmer. I made it up the stairs and turned to the right to Elsie Anders' room. I walked towards the door and took a breath in. I closed my eyes, trying to calm myself and Audrey down. I opened my eyes and knocked twice softly. I didn't hear anything, so I slowly opened the door and found the room pitch black. I blinked my eyes a couple of times, trying to make them adjust to the dark, and then I saw his figure on the bed. I walked in, closing the door after me. Inside, his scent filled the room. I walked over to the closet, trying so hard to not bump into anything. I finally found it was slamming into the wall a couple of times, but I'm surprised an alpha can sleep through that. I walked in, closing the door after me and switching in the light. My eyes stung because of the brightness the light shine and how they adjusted from dark to bright. I blinked a couple of times and then walked over to the side of my clothes. I grabbed some sweats and a large t-shirt that Elkina won't mind if I use. I shut off the light and opened the door, making myself go back to the dark maze. I finally found the bathroom door while I slammed my toes on the edge on the bed a couple of times and almost crawling. I closed the door behind me and turned on the light. I hissed again from the brightness but blinked and walked over to the shower. I turned on the water, letting it run till it turned warm while I started to strip. I finished my shower and turned off the light with my clothes in one hand. I sighed when I was met with the darkness. I started to walk towards the door, but foot got caught on something and I slammed straight down, hitting the edge of the bed. My head started to pound while I growled but slammed my lips close. "Jenna, just get up here, damn it." I jumped and rolled to my side while the pain was still coming. I groaned and closed my eyes. A light flicked on. I groaned again from the light. Sparks flowed through my arm and I quickly opened my eyes and see a tired Elkand pulling me up to the bed. I stared at him while he pulled me up till I was laying on the bed with him. He leaned over and turned off the light. I was stiff as a board while he wrapped his arm around me, holding me tight while he stuffed his head in my neck and sighed. "Good night," he said in a hoarse voice. I laid there stiff while he fell back asleep with a soft snore. Well, just great. Chapter 3 for Jenna. I woke up from the bed, digging, then bouncing, then back to digging. I breathed in and exhaled while slowly opening my eyes. I was on my back, so I was staring at the ceiling. I blinked a couple of times, trying to adjust to the light that is beaming through the window. I yawned and then turned my head to the left and see Alkander with bright hazel eyes staring me down. My heart started to beat faster, and I slowly got up and scooting away a little. "Good morning, but I need you to change as fast as you can," he said while I saw his Adam apple move up and down after his sentence. My eyebrows furrowed together. "Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Where I pushed myself up into a sitting position that made him jump out of bed and acted like I was some disease. "Jenna, please, we'll talk about it when you're done," he said while he pushed himself to the wall. His eyes were mixing with grey, then the grey was slowly turning to black. My eyes grew somewhat big and I slowly got up from the bed. I heard him suck in a breath. "Please, Jenna, I'll tell you why. But just change." He quickly stepped out of the room while I sat there confused. "Do you know what's wrong with him?" I asked Audrey while I got off the bed and walked to the bathroom. "Nope, but I have a feeling that he was staring at your chest because you don't have a bra." My eyes grew huge, and I dashed towards the bathroom. I switched on the light and saw my hair in a mess, but I didn't notice at all last night that I picked a white t-shirt from his side. "So you can see everything." I groaned to myself and closed my eyes. I feel so stupid. So stupid. I sighed and went to do my business and cursed myself because how am I going to brush my teeth? "Use your finger, dumb fool." "Shut up already, damn." I sighed because I don't have to do. So I grabbed the toothpaste on the counter and squeezed some on my finger. Once I was done, I walked to the closet and pulled out some clothes and a bra. I sigh and change again and walk down the stairs. "I need a house." "Why are you in my house?" "Wasting food." "I need a house." "You've said that for the millionth time. Tell me why you are in my house." I walked towards them and see Alkander standing in front of Helmer with his claws out. I grew big eyes and speed walked to him. I saw Helmer that he saw me, and then he looked back to Alkander. "Jenna, let me stay," he said, taking a step towards him. I heard Alkander taking a breath in and was about to slash him, but I gripped his arm and pulled him back. "Helmer, you need to leave. I'll have Janet and her mate get you a house. But right now I don't want to see you. You are to train the warriors at 10 am. I'll have Alkander send a mind link. You are to train them till 2 p.m. No questions asked. Just do. You are to train them your techniques and how to get out of a situation like you have. Have a nice day, Helmer. I'll see you at 2. Your house should be done by that time. But please, start to walk to the training field. It's almost 10. I said while I stood in front of Alkander, staring at his blue eyes. He stared at me for a while I did the same. He took a breath in and only nodded. He walked out and I heard the door close. I sighed and took a step away from Alkander. I turned around and see him staring at me. "What?" "You're fine. I'm sorry for having one of your shirts and having it to be wet. That's how a Luna should talk. Talk with power, Jenna," he said while he gave me a small smile. I felt myself warm up from those words. I felt my lips grow to a soft smile. I shook my head. "I only did that so you won't kill him again. Because clearly you two don't like each other. I don't know what's his problem does." He growled while he took a step towards me. I felt my eyebrows furrow. "Does he like you, Jenna?" "What?" No, why would he like me? He said he would only love his mate. And only. So you don't have to worry about another male liking me. Well, like that. But like friend. I saw his jaw clench, and he took another step towards me. I don't like him. He took another and wrapped one arm around my waist. I chuckled. I know. It's not that hard to see it, I really don't like him. He said again while he lifted my chin up to make me see his glaze with his other hand. I know, Alkender. I'm not done. You know, when you were talking to him like that with so much authority, I couldn't help but get, don't. I don't want to hear that. He smirked and pulled me closer to his body. It's true though. I shook my head. You need to call all of your warriors to the field. His eyes fogged over for a minute and then back to Hazel. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading cliché's enthusiasm. Now. Nope. I need to eat. I didn't eat yesterday, I said, trying to get out of his hold, but it only tightened. A good morning kiss would be great, he said while I looked back at him and see him staring down at me. I raised an eyebrow. It might seem to you, but food seems better to me right now. I pushed at his chest, but he lifted my chin up again. But I want a kiss. We'll go kissy, Alex. Not me. His face turned to disgust. What? No, he is like my brother. No way. Then I'm sorry. You're not get to. His lips cut me off. His hand went behind my neck and he started to move his lips. I was about to do the same. But right when I was, he pulled away with a smirk. Okay, now what do you want to eat? He pulled away from me and walked to the kitchen. I glared at his back and groaned to myself. I hate him. Alkender went to go cheek on the training. While I went to the pack house where Janet is always at. I walked in and waved at some pups who were running and laughing. Janet. I yelled because it was pretty loud. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading cliché's enthusiasm. I turned my head to the side and see her walking with the Alex in hand. I smiled and walked over to them. Hey Luna. The Alex bowed. He then looked over to Janet. I have to go. Alkender is calling me. He kisses her cheek, then looks back at me again, and did another bow. He walked away while I looked back at Janet, who's blushing but starts to walk. I walk with her and we end up walking out of the house. Okay, I need to tell you something. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading cliché's enthusiasm. What is. We walked around the pack house and walked through the pack grounds. Okay, you know Helmer. Okay, well, Alkender made a deal with him. He'll give him a house and clothes. But Helmer has to train his warriors and Helmer would be the highest ranked of the warriors. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading cliché's enthusiasm. What's wrong with that? We need to build a house. And have it done by 2. Chapter 35. Jenna. What do you mean we have to build a house before 2? She asked with worry in her voice. Her eyes were burning holes on my face. I had to look down at my hands. That's exactly what I mean, Jenna. A house can't be done in 4 hours. She shouted. I looked up and see her clenching her hair. I know. But you know this pack better than me. There has to be a spear house sitting somewhere. Then we can start to build the house. There's millions of house, Jenna. I just don't know whose has it or not. That's why we can look for 4 hours. I said, giving her a smile. But her glare made me almost drop it. Jenna, please, Janet. Please. This is all I'm asking for. Janet, please. I stared hard at her while she still had her glare. But slowly it started to fall and her shoulders sagged. She then sighed while closing her eyes and running a hand over her face. I felt my lips grow into a huge smile, but I couldn't help but wrap my arms around her and give her a hug. Thank you, I said, while I pulled away. She gave me a soft smile. But this is only time, Jenna. The only time I'll walk around looking for houses. I already did it with the Alex. I didn't think I have to do it again. Trust me, this is the only time. Me and Janet split up. She went to the south side and west. While I went to the north and east side. I already knocked on mostly half of the north side, but I would always have a door opening with a different face. I would always ask how they are doing, and I say I was just doing a checkup around the pack grounds. So far everything was fine with them, and they would ask if I wanted to come in, but I would always say no thank you. Then I would go on to another house. I checked the north side already now, I already got some of the west side covered, but still. No house was empty. I sighed while I walked up the stairs to an older-looking house and simply knocked twice. I heard the wood creak inside the house by each step they would take towards the door. I walked on my toes and heels and waited till they answered. I heard the locks unlock and then slowly the door creaked open. The inside of the house was dark, but what stood out was her shiny bright red eyes with a mix of gold in them. I felt my mouth drop and my eyes grow wide. Then slowly the door opened further open, and the step-in girl with shiny blonde hair stepped out. Her skin was somewhat tan while she was the same height as me. Her face was in a glare while she crossed her arms across her chest while she leaned on the doorpost. "What now?" "Luna," she spat. I felt my eyebrows furrow together. "What?" Her glare still stayed while she didn't answer me but just stared. Well, I'm not the Luna." Her eyebrow rose. "How so? Aren't you Aolciander's mate?" Yes, then how are you not the Luna?" "We have complications. Clearly it doesn't if you smell like him and wear his mark." "Okay." I didn't want to talk about mine and Aolciander's relationship. "I came here to see this house." "Why her? You're going to kill me too." She spat. I got taken back by her answer. "What? No, why would I come here to kill your last alpha did it to my parents. Why wouldn't the sun?" She growled. "No, I just came here to check if this house had someone in it. And if it did, I was going to ask if everything is fine." Her jaw clenched and her hands tightened around her arms. "How can I know you won't tell?" "Well, you kinda trusted me when you opened the door." Her mouth opened but shut close while she narrowed her eyes at me. "Listen, I didn't come here to kill you. All I did was see if this house had someone living in it. Well, it does. Now please." She pushed herself off the doorpost and took a step back into the house. "Leave." She was about to slam the door, but my hand shot up and held the door. "Wait, I'm not going to tell Alcander. I swear." "But what's your name?" She looked me toe up and then her eyes rested on mine. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My hand still held the door open, but she didn't seem to close it. "Mine's Jenna. Jenna Knox. Just Andrea." We stood there staring at each other, and then she sighed. "Come in, I guess." She left the door open, and then her figure disappeared in the darkness. I slowly walked in and slowly shut the door behind me. The door creaked so loud that I felt my heart start to beat faster. When the door shut completely, all I can see was darkness. I had to blink a couple of times for my eyes to somewhat adjust to it. I started to walk but ended up hitting my leg with something. I bit my lip because it hit me right in my shin. "Oh yeah, I forgot you guys can't see things," she yelled. I was rubbing my leg but I felt my eyebrows come together. "What?" "Come on. Over here." He voice said further down the darkness. "I can't see. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I really can't see. Even if my eyes try to adjust, I just can't see. I even switched to her grey eyes but still nothing. "What the hell?" I murmured back. I felt her hand wrap around my arm and she pulled me off the dark maze. She pushed me down and I shot up my arms trying to grab her, but I ended up on something. It felt like a couch, I think. I looked up and all I see is her eyes. Then out of nowhere light came from my side. The light lit up the room and I looked down and saw I was on a couch, while she was standing a few feet away from me holding a candle in her hand. "Sorry, I don't have electricity so I use candles." "Well, I also prefer the dark." That's pretty weird, but HH. "I know a lot of weird people," I said while I made myself comfy. "How did you turn that on?" I asked while I looked at the flame. "Just blew on it because the ashes were still glowing," she said, looking at the flame then back at me. Do you ever go out of here? Not really. I only go out to get food, but other than that I stay inside. I wanted to ask how her skin is tan then, but I didn't want to ruin this. So, how are your eyes red and gold? I asked, staring at them. She looked at me and then tilted her head. Why, just asking. Because they are really beautiful. I saw her lips grow to a small smile. I like you, Jenna. Unlike others I knew in the past. Thank you. And I know how you feel. You do. Or is it the other way around? Other disliking you, she said, while she sets the candle down. I felt my eyebrows furrowed. What? Others disliking you? Like Coleman, she said, crossing her arms. How do you know about Coleman? I said, getting up. She smirked. My eyes aren't like this for a reason. I'm a hybrid. Chapter 36. Jenna. I stared at her, with no emotion. Her words flowed through my head, but I couldn't seem to grasp what she said. What? I said while my eyebrow furrowed. She sighed and raised her right hand up and snapped her finger. The candle that was sitting on the coffee table went off. The darkness ate both of us while her eyes were the only thing you can see. I heard her snap again, and then flame went back on. I'm a hybrid. There's different types of hybrids. My eyes are red and gold for fire. She showed me her palm, and then a flame arose from her palm and danced over her hand. My mouth was hanging low. I can't believe they exist. I always thought they were like a myth, like witches or something like that. Do you have a wolf? I asked while I was still staring at her palm, but the flame went away and that made me stare at her eyes. Yes, Jenna. Just because I'm a hybrid, that doesn't mean I can't shift into wolf or have a wolf, she said, smiling. Someone is here. What? But of course she doesn't answer back when I need the answer. So, how come you don't go outside and stay in the dark? I asked while I sat back down. She shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. You can say I grew up in the dark, so I'm most comfortable in it. Okay. I have a question. How did you know about coming? She smiled and leaned against the wall while crossing her arms across her chest. The pack talks, Jenna. Word goes around once someone finds out of here's. Oh, the door slowly creaked open and head snapped towards it, and I saw sea green eyes. Who are you? A deep voice asked while the figure stepped in. I couldn't really sense it was dark, but then a flame illuminated right next to the person, and he was tan and tall. His dark brown matted hair was everywhere. I saw his eyes narrow slightly, then he looked to Angelia. Why is the Luna here? Shut up, Wilson, she said while she pushed off a wall. Wilson walked further and dropping a bag filled with food on the floor. I couldn't stop staring at his eyes. I never seen sea green eyes before. He tilted his head to me while raising an eyebrow. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I never seen those color of eyes before. He grunted in response and walked over to Angelia. I stood up. Are you two mates? They looked at me with open mouths. No, they both yelled. I was taken back by the voice rising. He's my cousin Jenna, Angelia said while pushing Wilson away from her. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, trying to hide my laugh. She chuckled. No, we are cousins. My father had a brother who was also a hybrid and had him, she said, nodding towards him. He was rubbing his shoulder. You didn't have to push me that hard. She shook her head. You're just too weak. Am not. Yes, you can't even hurt an ant. She chuckled. I looked over to him and see him staring down at the floor. So if Angelia can use fire, what can you do? I asked while I took a step closer to him. He looked up to me with confusion on his face. What? If your cousin can use fire, his eyes grew wide. His head snapped towards her. You told her. She nodded. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What have you done? Now we're going to get killed. She won't tell. I can tell already, she said, giving me a glance. She's the alpha's mate. How would she not tell him? I won't tell. He looks over to me and then turns back to Angelia and glared at her. I already shown her my power. She didn't run to him and tell. So I can trust her that she won't tell. She looks over to me. And it she does. I'll just burn her, she said, opening her palm, and I see the flame beaming. I swallowed hard and looked over to Wilson. He was already looking at, and then I see his shoulders fall in defeat. Ugh, fine. He steps forward and opened his palm. I'm a hybrid that has the power to use earth as a weapon. His veins in his hand start to slowly pop up and flower vines start to crawl out of his veins onto his hand. I can use anything really, he says while they wrap around his hand. I look up to his eyes and see them staring at his hand. This is so cool, I say while I look back down and see them starting to go away. There's different types of hybrids. Like how there's different types of wolves. Like how there's an alpha. There's a powerful hybrid, with mostly all of the powers. He tells me. I look over to Angelia and she nods to me. So you're telling me there is more of you guys? Well, we don't know. All we know is that we are the only two in this pack. Angelia says while she walks to us. When did you guys found out you had these? When we first shifted to our wolf form. Our wolves aren't like normal wolves. Ours are more bigger and faster. Well, except this one, she says, nudging his side. He just shakes his head and walks to the bag of food on the floor. Wow is all I can say. She just smiles and walks over to him and picks up an apple. She snaps her fingers and all the candles that were hiding in the dark lit up, lighting the wild house. Want to eat something with us? Wilson says while he starts to put the food away. I have to go. I just don't want the alpha looking for me, so I'll try to stop by tomorrow if I can, I say while walking to the door. I wave them goodbye and they wave back while I open the door and step out. The sun was already setting and the sky was a mix of orange and pink. I walked back to the house and stepped in and seeing Alkander putting on his shoes looking at the door. He sighed and dropped his shoe. I thought something happened to you, he says while he walks to me. He gives me a hug which I give one back. I sigh because just the feeling of him and his scent can just relax me. How was your day? He asks while he pulls away and stares down at me. Amazing. Chapter 37. Jenna. I clench my jaw tighter while I walk out of the room, going downstairs. I bite my lip and hurry downstairs, walking to the door. What? I growl while I was so close to winning and almost leaving. His smile grows wider. Good morning, he says in happy mode, while he has his hands behind his back, walking on his toes. I stare at him and then turn back to open the door. My hand turns the knob and start to open the door, but it slams closed by his hand right next to my head. I close my eyes and let out a harsh breath through my nose. Alkander, move your hand now. But, instead of him doing so, his other hand goes around my waist while his head goes to my neck, directly above my mark. I freaking told you not to put your hair up in a bun, Audrey's voice says. Shut up. It's really hot. And I thought you were supposed to be jumping up and down right now. Oh no. When he does this, it makes me feel weak. I hate that feeling. Alkander, to my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Why are you in a bad mood? He whispers in my ear, then making his nose trail down to my mark. I close my eyes tighter and try to move away from him. Because I don't know. I woke up in a bad mood, I say while I spun around and place my hands on his chest and try to push him away. But instead, he just stares down looking at me with curiosity in his eyes. What's wrong? He whispered while slowly his hand went up to my face, and his thumb creased my cheek. Nothing, I swear. I just woke up in a bad mood. I don't know why. Now I need to go check on Janet to see if she got the house, I said while I was reaching for the knob behind me. Even if I could open the door, his hand was still holding it shut. So I don't know what I was doing, but I need to get out. It's really hot. A kiss and I'll let you go. He smirked while he started to lean down. I narrowed my eyes at him. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Yes, a kiss. He leaned more in and was about to touch my lips, but I turned my head and he kissed my cheek. There you go. Got yourself a kiss. I spun around and went back to open the door, but of course he closed it back. A real one. he whispered in my ear, while his hand trailed down my neck to my mark, making little designs on it. Stop. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I turned around, and I didn't have time to react because his lips were in mine, making mine move with his. His hands wrapped around my waist while he pushed me against the door. By the time I was about to react, he pulled away and I almost growled, but he was already looking at my eyes with a huge smile. He lifted one eyebrow. Waiting, I had to swallow the growl back up and said, to my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Got your kiss. Now move so I can go check. One thing I forgot to tell you. Alex already got him a house yesterday, so no worry. He gave me a cheeky smile. So now we can stay together, he said, coming back closer. Hold your roll, boy. Who said I didn't have any other plans? I need to check on someone, I said, sticking out my hand, stopping him to come closer to me. His face fallen a little, and all I had to do was make him smile. Stop. We need to check Wilson and Andrea, Audrey said, but I didn't say anything. I continued to ignore her. I'm sorry, but I told that person I'll show up. But tomorrow I'm taking you out. No questions asked. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Okay, now I have to go. I opened the door and walked out, walking to Wilson and Elia. Now I'm starting to think you're just using me, Wilson said while I play with his hand. He would make the vines wrap around my hand and then unwrap. I'm not. I'm just in a wow state. I jump up from the couch and stare at him with wide eyes. He does the same at me. What? Can you grow fruit? Or like plants? To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What now? He stares at me with a questionable look. Wait, can I? He starts to get up, and that's when Angelia comes in from another room. I'm sick and tried of being sick and tried, she says while she throws herself on the couch where me and Wilson were sitting. That doesn't make sense, you know. Yes, it does. I'm sick and tried of being sick and tried. I'm just tried, she says while throws hands up and looks towards me. I raise an eyebrow and cross my arms across my chest. Did you sleep, eat? She laid her arms down and stared at me with narrow eyes. Why am I too fat? Is that it? Jenna, what the hell? When did I say you're fat? I said while she stood up. She started to walk to me. I clenched my jaw and was ready for anything. We were only inches apart. She breathed in and opened her mouth, and then started to laugh. My eyebrows furrowed. What the hell is wrong with you? I just wanted to see if you'll get mad at me for lying to you. But you somewhat got mad. She chuckled and then walked over to the kitchen. Okay, you need to get some help, I said while walking towards her. Been there, done that. She looks over her shoulder with a smile. Killed them when they didn't succeed. My eyes grow wide and her smile widens. Want anything to eat? She said while opening the fridge. Anything cold to drink. I'm starting to get really hot. Her head snaps towards me faster than I ever seen. I'm surprised she's not on the floor with a dismantled neck. What do you mean? You're hot. She closes the door and walks towards the counter and sits on it. That's exactly what I mean. I'm starting to get really hot. So, do you or not? She shook her head. When was your last heat? I don't want to hear that, Angelia, Wilson said from somewhere in the house. Shut up. I'm not talking to you, Wilson. I never really had one, I said, playing with my hands. I look up and her mouth is open wide. She blinks a couple of times and then closes her mouth, but opens it again trying to say words. You never had a heat. No, why? Oh God. Oh God. You need to go back to the alpha. Like now. She jumps off and walks towards me. What, why? It's better if you have your mate when you go through your heat. Trust me. You do not want to deal with it without your mate. He'll help you. I've been through it. And it's not a wonderful feeling. She starts to push me to the door. Wait. Tell what a heat is. No one ever told me what it is. I made watermelon, Wilson said while running towards us with a huge watermelon in hand. Chapter 38 Jenna. That's a heat, I said while I looked between Angelia and Wilson, who's eating the watermelon. I couldn't even have this fat ass with me. My fire was out of control. And once you get the feeling of being really hot, just imagine me. I was somewhat on fire. It was horrible, she said while she leaned on the wall. So what do? Go to him before all the males come hunting for you, just to get in your pants, Wilson said while chewing the watermelon and then trying to offer me some. I growled at him. Okay. None for you then. He walked away, chomping away. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I don't want to have sex with him. I barely gave him a chance to be my mate, I said, gripping my hair and letting out a frustrated growl. Well, you have to, or suffer through the pain. But I'd rather have sex. Because of heat. She chuckled while shaking her head. It's no fun, Jenna. Ask anyone who had their heat by themselves. They'll tell you the same thing, I said. Except for the fire part. What do I do now? I'm getting hotter by the second. And you never gave me that water. See? No, you're getting aggressive and now you're turning hot. It's the only matter of time before your scent changes and all the males come to you. I know about you. You'll try to FCK any male that comes to you so you can cool down. And I don't think you like that or the alpha. I growled at her, but she shrugged her shoulders. Just saying the truth, Jenna. I almost had sex with my Efkin cousin. You know how Efkin disgusting that is. I cringe every time I think about my heat. I burned him when he came near me, so go now. Get it over with before you feel like you're on fire. So go back to your alpha and go have the sex you love. She smirked while I blushed. Oh God. I can't do this. I pound my head on the wall wishing I can be swallowed up by the earth. My eyes grew wide. Well, so no, Jenna. Go or I'll burn you. Her hand went to flames and I growled at her. She raised an eyebrow and I saw her fingers snapped, and a flame lit right next to me. I growled again. I growled even louder and gripped the knob and twisted it. And then made the door slam to the wall. I stomped out the house and stomped all the way to his estate. But when I was walking I was growing hotter by the second. I started to take off my shirt and I thanked the moon goddess that I had a tank top. On the way up to his estate his wolves stared at me while I growled at them. I stomped into the house and threw my shirt on the floor. I'm starting to drip sweat. What the hell is going on? I take off my shoes and socks and throw them somewhere. My feet go against the cool tile and I sigh, but then it turns really hot. I rush towards the freezer and open it, letting the cool air hit me. I sigh but end up growing even hotter. I growl in frustration and I pull out the ice maker and rush upstairs. I run upstairs with the ice in my hand, rushing over to the bathroom. I turn on the water and I scald and clog the drain. I dumped all the ice from the ice maker and throw the empty thing on the floor. I rush out looking around for any fan laying around. I run all around looking for anything, but each time I ran into a room. I took off one clothing item. Alcando was nowhere to be seen. I made my way back to the kitchen and I see a note on the counter. Went out with the Elix to train my men. Be home late. Alcando. I rip up the paper, but once I have the paper shreds in hand, I start to cry. What the hell, man? Then out of nowhere I grow angry and shreds on the floor. I rush back upstairs and make it just in time before the water starts to overflow. I'm just in my underwear and bra, so I take that off and climb right in. The ice water engulfs my body, cooling my body. I stick my head in the water, hearing my heartbeat start to become steady, but that's when I stick my head up and the water turns hot. I start to cry when my body grows hotter and hotter. I sit up and unclog the drain and stand up. I turn on the water on cold and stand there. The water barely sends cold through my skin, but then end up growing hot. My heart pounds against my chest, hurting because I never felt this pain before, or ever felt like I'm burning alive. I start to cry in the shower and starts to whimper. My hands go to the shower walls, hoping the wall would be cold enough for me to cool down. I cry and claw at the wall, hoping I can just die because of this pain. I start to have short breath and reach up to the shower head, reaching for the cool water that barely comes out. But my fingertips make them feel like they are flames touching me. I whimper louder and shut off the water. I get off and walk over to the sink, panting. I turn on the water, splashing the water on my face, but it just feels like hot coals burning tiny holes on my face from each droplet that lands. I start to sob and whimper. I gasp for air while sweat covers every pore from my body. I walk into the room looking up and seeing a ceiling fan. I rush over to the light switches and switch the fan on. I go directly under it and I jump up, pulling the switch on the full speed. The air dries the water on my body and slowly my hair starts to follow. The air burns me, but it still has somewhat cool breeze. My eyes grow wide while the tear falls. The air conditioner. I start to rush over to the door, but that's when it lands open with Alkander breathing hard with black coal eyes. "Mate," he huffs out. Chapter 39. Jen, I almost whimper just seeing him. My skin feels like I'm being skinned alive, and then lighting myself on fire. "Mate." He steps in, closing the door shut, having his eyes on me the whole time. His eyes doesn't even have white in them. He takes a step closer while he breathes harder and harder. He says while his eyes switch to hazel, but they go back to deepical. His jaw clenches and he takes another step. I'm panting, while tears fall down my face. "Help me," I say while I take a step closer. His nostrils turn huge, then back to normal. He takes a bigger step towards me, and I couldn't stand this pain, so I ran towards him. And once my body just touched him, I cooled down. I almost whimper from cooling down. But of course my body decides to turn even hotter. I whimper loud, but his hands wrap around me. I look up with tears in my eyes. He blinks while shaking his head. His eyes switch. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Blah. He growls. "I won't," he says, but has trouble doing so. "Do it." He growls again while his eyes try to switch to hazel, but black remains. "Do you say it's okay?" He growls out, while he breathes harder and his grip around me tightens. The body feels like I've been put to an open flame while adding more fuel to it, making it hotter and hotter. "Do it. Make it stop." I cry out, my hands clenched around his shirt while I'm begging for this pain to stop. He picks me up and places me on the bed. I whimper when he stands up staring at me. He growls again and shakes his head while he stares down at me. He closes his eyes, while I try to reach out to him, begging to touch him. He opens his eyes and I see them hazel. "If we're going to do this, I don't want my wolf to be the one to do it." He growls, then takes off his shirt and then his pants. He crawls on top of me and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to stop this burning feeling. I grip his face and pull him down till his lips were on mine. My hands trail down his chest, feeling each muscle line. My foot comes up and goes to his waistband, pulling them down. He growls in my mouth while I moan and they come off. My skin still burns, but every time he moves his legs and his arms to stay up, it ends cool but also pleasure to my body. And I can't help to moan, "Jenna, quit effing talking, and help me." I growl, while I look at him with narrow eyes. He bites his lip and only nods. I pull his head down and made his lips go on mine. I don't know why, but I was trying to put myself in control for this whole thing. I started to wrap my legs around his hip, and moaning when I was doing so. "Jen," he tried to say, but my lips didn't let him talk. He was pushing his hips up, stopping for me to get out of this pain. "Alkander." I whimpered while I pulled him down till he was almost putting his whole weight was on. My face was in the crook of his neck. "I'll do this, but I take control." I only nodded because my body was heating up more and more. "Dinner, yes, Alkander. Just make this STO." Before I could finish, he slammed right into me, making me growl and whimper at the same time. Instantly I was cooling down, and I almost cried at the feeling of being cooled down. But I forgot about Alkander for a quick second, but when he was moving I moaned really loud in his ear. But he hissed. Nice going. Way to ruin the most shut up Audrey. Get out of my head right now. My legs tightened around his hips and he growled. My hands went to his back and I felt my claws come out, sinking into his back. His chest came off of mine. His arms went right next to my head. I looked to his eyes and I see his hazel ones. He was looking down at me with lust till I couldn't help but do the same. His arms' muscles flexed, while he held up his weight. My hands trailed down his back, feeling every muscle move with his hips. I even felt the scratches I made, but they were already healing. My legs pushed down his hip when he was about to thrust and made him slam into me, making both him and I growl and moan. His head went down and kissed the side of my mouth, trailing down to my neck, going to my... He started kiss around my mark while my back arched and letting my head fall to the side, giving him more access. He started to kiss my mark, then slowly his teeth grated off and I couldn't help but moan. And the pleasure from his kisses on my mark at his hips. I was on cloud 9 from all the pleasure. My hands went to his biceps and clenched around his muscles. They flexed every time he would move. He trailed his kisses back up until his lips were on mine. We kissed while his hips were moving faster. I moaned into the kiss while he growled. I pulled apart while I placed my head in his neck. I was moving my hips with him when I was starting to feel my stomach clench. I guess he was feeling the same since he was moving faster. We were both panting, and once I was almost there, I don't know what I did, but my fangs came out, claiming him as mine. We both came together while his hip weakly thrusted and both us came undone. He said weakly. I grew big eyes while I was licking his wound. I pulled my head out of his neck and saw his eyes were trying to stay open. Oh no. Oh no. Alcandor, I said while my hand went to his face. He was blinking weakly and he tried to say something, but he fell onto the side of the bed, knocking out cold. Alcandor. I sat up while I shook his shoulder, trying to wake him up. I licked my lips and looked at his neck. The mark was slowly healing and I couldn't help but stare at it. I marked him, claiming him. Oh no.